post this onto Team Sideline later this evening or tomorrow. And that way, well, like I said, you can refer back to it at any point if there's something you think you missed or if somebody else would like to watch it. As I said before, we do this every season. Not a lot changes from season to season, but it's always good just to get a better understanding of what to expect for any given season. We'll always talk about things that have happened last season and moving forward as well. At this point, I'm going to share my screen so that hopefully you can all see what I'm looking at. Okay. And as I said before, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. So this meeting is going to come in 3 parts. First part of this meeting is going to be an overview of Team Sideline, which is the league and team resource management website that we use for you as a manager to keep track of everything you need to know about your league and how the league works and runs. The next part is we're going to be going over the manager's guide. The manager's guide doesn't change much season to season. What we'll be doing is going over the finer details, and I'll be addressing some of the issues that I noticed from season to season. And the last part will be the Q&A. Normally, these meetings are also joined by my head umpire for the leagues. However, he thought it was a better idea to go to a Dodgers game and spend time with his family. Can you believe that guy? So if there are rules-specific questions, I'll do my best to answer them. However, I'm not perfect when it comes to understanding the rules of softball. But anything I can't answer, I'll write down and I'll refer to him so that I can then clarify for everybody later. All right, with that all said, I'm going to show the first thing I'm going to show you, like I said, is Team Sideline. For those who are calling in and don't have a visual of the screen, I'll do my best to explain what I'm doing so that you have an idea of it, or hopefully you'll be able to get to a computer at some point during the meeting so you can follow along with me as well. So first thing you're going to want to do is find a web page, open up a new tab, and then you're going to start typing in www.teamsideline.com/Ventura. Please be sure to type the /Ventura. The regular teamsideline.com page is their business website. It's not our league-specific website. You're going to get there and you're going to be like, what do I do? So make sure you do the /Ventura. Click enter and it takes you to a page that looks like this. We've got a lot of great photos at the top of our leagues, people playing, a lot of really fun options at the top as well. You scroll down, there's more information about our leagues. We've got a game scroller here for all the games that are coming up in the next couple of days. Right now, all these games are advertising for our Monday soccer and kickball. The more you scroll down, there's just more promotion for our programs that are about to start happening that haven't happened yet. All the way down, and further down is where you'll find this recording will be posted after the meeting. So right now there's the soccer meeting and the kickball meeting posted as well. So as a manager in our league, the one thing that you're going to need more than anything else on this website is you're going to scroll down here to the left. You're going to notice a link here that says schedules. Under schedules, we've got all the summer 23 programs available right now. We've got all of our other league schedules posted right now because all of our other leagues have either had their managers meetings or are already in progress. Softball started later this season than any of our other leagues. This was because we wanted to offset the timing, the start time. It's just a lot easier on myself and my staff to offset the timing of the leagues and programs. That and softball, because of how the leagues are structured, has a slightly shorter season than the other programs and leagues are. So what you'll do when the softball schedules are up is you'll look at them here. You'll see a little arrow next to softball, and you'll click on the arrow. Then a bunch of leagues and divisions will drop down. Each one corresponds to a different night. We have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. This season we have 5 Tuesday night men's leagues, 4 Wednesday night men's leagues, and the women's league back on Wednesdays. 5 co-ed softball leagues on Thursday, and 5 co-ed softball leagues on Friday. We are full. It was a very busy registration period. Yeah, so everyone, thank you all for getting your registration in, getting it on time as well. We actually had, this was one of the easiest registration periods that I've had personally since I've worked here. Just teams were getting in, they're getting their payment in much earlier than they have in the past, which was really nice for me. Once you find your day, you'll begin to click arrows down here, and all the team names will drop down, and you'll find your team name. Once you find your team name, you know that's your league, and so you can click on the league schedule page like this. So I'm going to give us an example right now of a league that's in process, which is just men's B soccer, just to give you an idea of what it looks like after the leagues and divisions have already started. So it'll have all the teams listed with the team names, the schedules. The records are all updated automatically by my staff at the end of each night. You'll scroll down more, and then you'll have your schedule available to you. It'll always have the day of the week, the game time for each game, the home and the away team, and then the location. We're only using 2 locations for softball. It's Camino Real Park, fields 1, 2, and 3, and then Ventura Community Park, often called Kimball Park, and those fields are called Auto Center and Ventura Toyota Field. When you click on the link, it will just take you to the park. Unfortunately, it doesn't take you to the exact field. So once you are there, you'll have to, you can either ask my staff, or the fields are also labeled themselves. Okay. And there is no field 5 for softball. Like I said, this is for this schedule is for soccer. But as you scroll down, you'll see there may be notes for each week posted. For instance, next week, the field is unavailable for this division for soccer, so they don't have games on the 19th, but they have games on the 26th. There are no games for the 4th of July holiday. Soccer is always on Mondays. And so as the season goes on, you'll just see your schedule throughout the entire season. Just as a heads up, there are changes to the schedule throughout the course of the schedule, whether due to weather delays, teams forfeiting, etc. So just please be aware that the schedule may change. I do my best to update changes as much as possible, whether that be emails or phone calls, just because I want you to be aware of any changes. It does happen, so don't print out your schedule and post it on the fridge just yet. I would recommend always checking at the beginning of the week for the exact, just in case there were any changes. Mm-hmm. And any changes as well or additions to your league will always be posted up here in the message board area at the top of each division. And to give you an idea of what a completed league looks like, or at least a completed softball league looks like, I'll show you last season's records. And hopefully I randomly click on one that was competitive. Was this one competitive? Yeah, this was competitive enough. So last season, obviously, there were a lot of weather delays. For any returning teams, I know you're aware of it. Even for new teams, I'm sure you're aware of how crazy the weather was in January, February, and March. We had to cancel or reschedule a lot of games. The first 5 weeks, actually, or technically 7 weeks for Friday didn't happen. And this is something that not happy about. We made it work, though. If games are canceled for weather or anything field-related, those games will be rescheduled at the end of the season. So you notice up here the first couple of weeks are games scheduled for week 1, rescheduled to week 10. Games rescheduled from week 2, rescheduled to week 11, all the way down as much as we can. Unfortunately, we don't have much time between the summer and the fall seasons. So if there are crazy weather delays or field issues like we've had in the past, we don't have a lot of time with which we can reschedule games towards the end of the season. So we may have to start canceling games sooner than we like to. If games are canceled for any reason, that is there was a weather delay or a field delay or an issue, then the game will be, and there's no time for them to be rescheduled. They'll be canceled, they won't appear on the schedule, and you will receive a prorated refund for any games that you don't get to play. And so that's all the information you're going to need. So once you find your division, take a look at your schedule, let your team know. The first week games are scheduled as they are. We won't make any changes for the first week. And like I said, any changes that come up after that, though, I'll do my best to communicate with you, whether that be email or phone calls. So going back to our homepage, one thing I just want to point out here for everybody is that if you're looking to play another sport, Or if you have friends who don't have a full team and they want to play, you can always link them here to the free agent sign up page. They can come here, they can type in their information, click submit, and it will send their information to me. Then when other teams ask me for free agents, I'll pass along their contact information. You can click your sport. We offer a wide variety of sports that you can select as well. And so that's right at the top of our team sideline homepage. Okay. And apologies again if I'm going quickly. This is something that comes very naturally for me. I have 5 of these meetings every season. So if I am going too quickly, please just post it in the chat, ask me to slow down, ask me to repeat myself. I'm happy to. These meetings are for you to understand everything you need to. So if I'm going too quickly for you to understand something, please stop me or ask me to slow down. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about, once again, up at the top, this is going to be an area for you to gain access to something that every team captain needs to read before the season starts. It's also good for players to read as well, just so they have the information about it. I think that it will help explain things that a lot of people may not understand. So at the top bar of our Team Sideline homepage, you're going to click on Downloads. When you go to downloads, you're going to find this little arrow next to softball. You'll click on it, and you're going to look at the softball handbook. This is essentially the manager's guide. And I've sent this out before. I'll be sure to send a hard copy of this out tomorrow as well. And I do trust most of you to be responsible to read this yourself if you haven't already. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on it. But like I said before, I'm going to go over some finer details just in case anyone has any questions. So at the top, this is the basic information we have about our programs that we offer, the seasons that we offer them, the parks that we play at, just a description of all of those different programs. Scrolling down, this is my contact info. I'm sure you all know this already, but just in case, here it is. Heads up, umpire fees are $20 per game. This was not part of your registration fee. This is a separate fee that you pay in cash to your umpire before each game. Some umpires are okay with being paid digitally or virtually. Some are not, so just be prepared. If for any reason you're scheduled a double header, make sure you bring $40. That's $20 for each game. Rosters are limited to 15 players.
David?
Hold on really quick. I'm going to mute this person because I'm getting a lot of background noise. Okay. Teams are limited to 15 players, team rosters. We understand sometimes that there may be issues. People are inconsistent. Work schedules change. There are a lot of work teams as well in our leagues, and we want to be accommodating to them as well. So if you do need to add more players to your team, that's okay. As long as they all sign in, as long as they all sign the roster, sign the waivers before the season starts, or before they play, it's okay. This is more of a reminder to teams that if you win the championship, we only give out 15 prizes. So if you've got 16 players on your team and you win the championship, somebody doesn't get a prize. Every team plays 8 games, and games are played to 60 minutes and then finish the inning, or no new innings after 7 innings. Games do end in ties, so we don't start. So if your game ends 12-12, your game is over 12-12. We don't do extra innings. We don't do overtime. And everyone starts with 1 ball and 1 strike. For each time at bat. Forfeits, they're going to happen. We don't like them. Nobody does. Unfortunately, they just are a part of the game. They're a part of working with groups of people. If you think you're going to forfeit your game, please let me know as soon as possible. We say 24 hours notice. However, that's hard to do. It's always hard to do the night before. What I like to think of this is as if I wake up and show up to work and I have an email from you before I check in, or when I check into work, that says we're going to forfeit our game tonight. that says we're going to forfeit our game tonight, then I won't charge you the forfeit fee. This is because as long as I have a work day to accommodate for the forfeit, we will consider that a full day notice. If you don't give that full day notice, or if you do a no-show and you just don't show up to your game, you're going to have to pay a forfeit fee. And a forfeit fee is $40. That's $20 for you, $20 for your opponent. So please, if you think you're going to forfeit and you don't want to pay that fee, err on the side of caution and give notice ahead of time, sooner rather than later. When paying the forfeit fee, there are a few different ways you can do it. You can just email me to find the easiest way to do it. Usually it's easiest just to bring your money to the field before your next game. And hand it to staff, and then staff will give it to the umpires. This is easiest because every week we rotate our umpires, so they may not be at the same field as you, they may not be at the same park, so it's easiest just to give it to staff, and staff will make sure it gets to the right person. And if you do need to forfeit, just email me or call me, and we'll address it ahead of time. Mm-hmm. I mentioned before about rainouts and cancellations. If there's a cancellation because of a field issue, that game will get rescheduled. We don't reschedule games for forfeits. A forfeits, whichever team is forfeiting loses. The team that doesn't forfeit gets the win. So moving down, this is to our rules. I know it's everybody's favorite part. We use the SMAF rulebook for the most part, with a few exceptions. And it's actually funny. We've been playing with a few of these rules. Since then, SMAF has actually changed their rulebook to match ours in a few areas through the past couple of years. So I like to think that our rules are better. But, to each their own. As I said before, game-related fees must be paid before the start of each game. Umpires, if they don't want to, they don't have to start a game until they're paid, and your time starts when it's scheduled to start. So if you're not ready, if you haven't paid the umpire, if you're like scrounging around cash, you're losing your own game time. So be prepared to pay the umpire as soon as you get to the field. Right now, there are Little League fences up at Camino Real Park. Those are coming down in a couple of weeks, fortunately. However, while those fences are up, any ball that is hit over the fence or through the opening of the fence before it hits the ground, that's an automatic out. We do this for the safety of the kids. Even if there are no kids on the other side of the fence, the rule is still in effect. A ball can bounce and then go over the fence, and that's a ground rule double. A ball can bounce, hit the ground, and roll through the opening. That's also a ground rule double. So just be aware of that. If a player hits the ball over the fence and continues to do so in the same game, they can be ejected by the officials. So please, be responsible for yourself out there. Check in early. Everyone should get to the fields 15 minutes before the game. If you want to warm up, you need to do that before the game. Don't run out there 5 minutes before your game's supposed to start and say, wait, we need to warm up. You should have been doing that sooner. Game times start when they're scheduled to start. We have very busy nights, and everyone wants to get out of there on time. So please don't hold up the games any more than you need to. Games start as soon as both teams have at least 8 players. So games can be played with as few as 8 players in the field. Mentioned before, teams can play with as few as 8 players. However, you cannot have more than 5 men on the field for a co-ed team. So if you are short women, you still can only play with 5 men. However, the opposite is not true. If you are short men for a co-ed league, you can play with more women. So if you have 3 men show up, you can field 7 women. However, you cannot field 7 men and 3 women. Our men's leagues technically are open gender, so men's teams can have women play on the team with no rules or restrictions or guidelines for how to play. Teams that only have 8 to play, the other team can provide a courtesy catcher. If you provide a courtesy catcher at the beginning of the game, you have to provide a courtesy catcher for the rest of the game until the other team doesn't want one. So you can't play the first inning and offer a courtesy catcher, and then the second inning say, we don't want to do that anymore. Once you provide a courtesy catcher, you have to provide the entire game until the other team doesn't need them anymore. However, you are not required to provide a courtesy catcher. It's a courtesy catcher for a reason. Teams playing with illegal players will forfeit their game. An illegal player would be somebody who has been suspended from league play and they're not allowed to play, or somebody who plays on another team in the same division. If you think there is an illegal player playing, please bring it up with your umpire. If they are able to address it immediately, they will. However, if they don't have the information to address it immediately, please email me and then I'll address it the next day as best that I can. Every day for your game, you are responsible for writing down the batting order of your team on the blue scorecard the umpire gives you. This is your team's batting order as well as the attendance tracking page we use to see who gets to play in playoffs. So please write names clearly. Please do not use nicknames. And please make it obvious if you have multiple people on the team with the same last name or the same first name and last initial. We want to know who's at the game so that we can assess attendance for the playoffs. If somebody is arriving late to the game and you've already turned in the scorecard, ask the umpire for the scorecard back so you can write their name in. If you don't ask for that scorecard back, if you don't write their name on that card, I don't know that they're there. They don't get attendance, and they may not be allowed to play in the playoffs. This was a new rule we added last season, which I'm sorry if many teams didn't appreciate. However, we do this for multiple different reasons, but we do not allow amplified music to be played by either team during the game, and players are not allowed to wear headphones or earphones at any point during the game. Here's the mercy rule. I'll just let you read it. But basically, if you're getting crushed after the 4th or 5th inning, we just kind of end the game early. The last rule that we really like to reiterate, which we will reiterate more, is no consuming alcohol at City of Ventura parks. And I saw there was a question about the SMAF rule book. I don't have a link to the SMAF rule book here. However, if you would like, please email me and I'll send you a link to the SMAF rule book as well. Next up, and I know this is everybody's favorite part, is the code of conduct. This part I'm going to slow down a little bit just because I really want to make this clear. Every season there are issues with interactions between people, players, fans, umpires, officials, my staff. Things can get a little contentious, and we don't like that. We want to reduce that as much as possible because it's a City of Ventura park, and there are children there and families, and we don't want people, just random passerbys of the park, to not feel comfortable because of the behavior of somebody in our leagues. Next is because whether or not you like it, as a participant in one of our leagues, you do represent the City of Ventura. If we allow you to play in our leagues, it means that we are going to hold you to a certain standard of behavior. And if you can't abide by that standard of behavior that we set for you, there will be punishment. And we may remove you from the league if you can't be responsible for yourself. Like I mentioned before, there are families. It's a public park. We can't allow people to, go on profanity-laced tirades, consuming alcohol, drinking, smoking, causing a problem, making people feel uncomfortable to be in the park. We can't abide by that. At this point, I'd like to remind you that as the manager, you are ultimately responsible for everybody on your team, including yourself, your players, and as well your fans. I've had issues before where fans will come on and yell things, be rude, obnoxious, obscene. And I've had to talk to the managers and say, hey, you can't let these people do like this. And they've just told me, they're fans, they're in our attendance. What do you want me to do? And I've had to explain to them that if those fans are going to cause problems, the umpire will forfeit the game, and then they can all go home and take the loss. Um, if they really are your fans, then they can sit there quietly and appreciate supporting you without causing a scene. Because if they are going to cause a scene, your team will lose games because of them. Remind them of that if they, can't control themselves. We have a standard progression of disciplinary action that we like to use for any obscene behaviors. We do not have to follow this progression. This is our standard progression, and this is for anybody who's causing problems, getting into arguments with the officials. Maybe not abiding by the rules the way they're meant to be played. And that's first is you're just going to get a warning. The umpires are usually pretty clear about giving warnings. They're usually very lenient. A lot of my umpires will give a few warnings before taking it to the next level. But just as a heads up, I've told them, don't give out so many warnings. If somebody is swearing at you, is causing a problem, is making you feel uncomfortable, one warning and they're gone. It's not baseball. We don't need to give 3 strikes. This is disciplinary action. Next up, if a player fan is still acting unruly after a warning, they're going to be removed from the game. If they continue to cause problems after that, we're going to suspend them from league play. And if we have to suspend you if you're kicked out of a game for any reason, you're going to be suspended for a week no matter what. If you get multiple suspensions over the course of a season, we may just say you're done for the season. Don't come back till next season. And if we think that you've got a history of disciplinary issues, we may kick you out for longer than that. We've done it before. I don't want to do it. I would like to remind everybody that I don't like being a disciplinarian. I don't enjoy those phone calls. I don't want to have them, but I will and I have to promote the safety for everybody else in the league. Ultimately, that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants to feel comfortable playing in our leagues. Everyone wants to know that they're going to go out there and have a good time with their friends, that they're going to, when the game is over, they can go home, relax, unwind, and then be with their family, and then wake up and do whatever they have to do the next day. There are no scouts in attendance. I'm sorry. There are no contracts that anybody is signing for the big leagues. I apologize again. Everyone really just wants to enjoy themselves, to feel comfortable, and to have a good time with their friends. If you or anybody on your team is going to do something that will interfere with another person's safety, comfort, and fun, then you are the problem, and we may remove you. Okay. There are a few things which we consider major infractions. Major infractions are something that there is no progressive discipline policy. It's straight to an ejection and a suspension for a week, if not longer. First is physical contact with an official, player, staff, or fan. This is fighting, punching, kicking, biting, scratching, clawing, anything along those lines. If an umpire sees you, and this is even as far as throwing a punch at somebody. If you're throwing a punch, you're basically punching them. Umpire says, you're gone, get out of here. We won't see you at least for another week, depending on how severe we think the punishment or how severe what you did was. Verbal abuse, objectionable demonstrations. Like I said, profanity-laced tirades, flipping the bird at somebody, stomping dust and kicking dust onto the umpire, causing a scene, drawing attention away from other people's fun and enjoyment, just so that you can, voice your frustration with something you didn't like. Any of these can be seen as an objectionable demonstration. Along with verbal abuse would be threats of violence. Anybody who's going to say, I'll see you in the parking lot afterward, you're gone. We're not going to deal with that. We don't need that in our leagues. If you want to hang out and see somebody in the parking lot later, just drive home. All right, we won't see you next week either. Anything like that will take away from the safety and comfort of others. We don't abide by that. Unnecessary rough play. Softball can be a physical sport. We've got players that are all trying to occupy the same space at one time, people running down first base, people sliding into home. There's going to be physical contact between players. A lot of the time, especially for our lower levels, we have players who are standing in the baseline because they aren't sure where they should be at any given time. And we've got runners trying to run in that baseline. It's going to happen. There will be contact. This applies to anything that the umpire would consider unnecessary rough play. So if you are running home and you see somebody standing in your way, this would be you lowering your shoulder and just trucking them. You didn't need to do that. You could have gone around them. You could have yelled at them to give them a warning. Do what you can to avoid unnecessary contact with other people. A lot of this will fall under the umpire's discretion. A lot of all of these will fall under the umpire's discretion. Don't put them into the position where they have to choose between. Don't put them in a situation where we have to choose between making a good call for the safety of somebody else. Don't make it so that they have to do that. Just avoid unnecessary rough play as much as possible. And last one, as I said before, consuming illicit substances. This has to go along with alcohol, cannabis. City of Ventura parks are drugs and alcohol free. If the umpire catches you smoking, drinking, anything like that in the dugouts, in the stands, they can just kick you out of the meeting. They can just kick you out of the game. You forfeit the game. They'll send you home. Some umpires give warnings. Some don't. Don't leave it up to chance. If you get a penalty that you think was longer than 1 week, that you think is unfair, you can appeal. Email me, and we will reassess everything. I'll interview the umpire, my staff, other people that were in attendance to get an idea and let you know whether or not we think that was fair or not. And really quick, everybody, I have been seeing the questions that have been coming up. I will be addressing all of them later. So please just bear with me. Next is the official bat policy. We do not keep a track record of all legal bats. There are too many to keep track of all of them. The bat companies make new ones every year. It would not be possible. I'd say refer to this as much as you can. If you're really cannot decide between one bat or another, take a photo of it, email me, and I'll give you my take, my opinion of whether or not it's legal or not. I'm just going to be honest with you right now, from what I've seen from as long as I've been doing this. A lot of companies that make bats will honestly lie about what's in their bat because they think it will sell better if it has or doesn't have something in it. So they can be very deceptive. I would be very careful. Like I said before, if you're thinking about buying a bat and you aren't sure, take a photo, send it to me, and I'll reply to you as soon as I can. Another thing as well is I know that in town in the city of Ventura, Plate Against Sports, a lot of the people that work there are very familiar with our leagues. If you go in and you say that you need a bat for our league, they'll know whether or not a bat would be legal or illegal for our leagues. They may for the most part. Maybe not some of the newer staff, but some of the more experienced staff do have a really good history with us. And we're on really good terms with them, so they would usually give you very good information. The basics, though, are bats need to be made of either wood or aluminum. They need to be ASA-approved softball bats. So if there isn't an ASA sticker, it's not going to be allowed. If it's a fast pitch or if it's a baseball bat, it's not going to be allowed. We do not allow composite bats in our leagues. This is composite in the barrel. We do allow composite in the handle, but not the barrel. And from what I've seen, most bats will say if they are composite or if they are not. That's not all bats. Like I said before, a lot of bat companies can be deceptive with their promotion for their bats. But for instance, if it says composite anywhere or if it doesn't have the official ASA stamp, don't even bother. Find another one. If at any point you think the other team is using an illegal bat or a bat that has been altered, tell the umpire. Okay? Have the umpire inspect the bat. If the umpire doesn't inspect the bat, because I've told them all to inspect the bats, please let me know and I'll have a conversation with them. Sometimes umpires will be familiar with the bat already, so they may already know, at which point then they may not inspect the bat, but please ask them why they aren't inspecting it. I don't want my umpires to blow you off. I don't want my umpires to be making calls or doing things and not explaining themselves to you. Um, conduct and treating other people with respect goes both ways. You pay them money, you expect a good game, and they should treat you with respect as well. So if at any point you ask an umpire for clarification or for them to uphold their work, what they're supposed to be doing, and they don't, please let me know. These are one of the things that I battle all season long. I know some of my umpires, they may get tired, they may have other things going on in their life, and they're not able to provide the service that they would like to. So please, if it does happen, bring it up with me, and I will bring it up with them. Please don't take matters into your own hands with disputes with the umpires. Even if you don't think the umpire was being fair or nice on any given day, trying to get into a fight with them will not end well. Please let me know. Let me handle anything that needs to be handled with the umpires from my end. Next, moving on to classification guidelines. I'll be releasing the schedule and the divisions later tonight. So once you find your team, you can look at, see where your team's classified. This is a general idea of how our classifications work, but I will just be upfront with everybody that it's not perfect every season. Every season, I get 12 new teams, and all 12 teams tell me that they've never played before and that they should play in the lowest division. And then I get another 10 returning teams that say, hey, we're losing one player. We need to be placed in the lowest division. It would be nice to put all 22 teams in the lowest division, but then that wouldn't be a very good division, and you wouldn't have a lot of fun. So it's my job with my staff to look at how your team has performed through seasons past. We always use the most recent season as the biggest determining factor to how we think your team will perform. If there are questions, we'll use previous seasons as well. We will take into consideration any changes to your roster if they've been brought up to us. However, please keep in mind that roster construction or league division construction is more of an art than a science. Yes, obviously you're going to lose players and gain players throughout the course of the season or from season to season. Every team does. Yes, you may have injuries. You may have people's work schedules change. Your team's not going to be as inconsistent from one season to another. And you know what? Every team has that as well. It's very rare that you're going to start with the same 10 players that you finished the season with, and everyone's going to make it to every single game and play to their peak without being sick, without being injured. I say this because always our goal when we put these leagues together is to put your team into a spot where we think that you're going to be able to be competitive with the other teams around you. We apologize that sometimes it's very difficult. We may have teams that are on the borderline between being an upper mid or a lower upper, or an upper low or a mid or a lower mid. It makes it really difficult, and we're not perfect at it. We apologize. We always use the first couple of weeks to assess how the leagues are doing to see if they're functioning as we anticipated them to. And if we can make a change for one team that looks obviously out of classification, we try to as soon as we can. But as I've mentioned before, sometimes we can't. We have to look at how all of the divisions are playing between themselves before we can make any changes. If you are unfortunately not performing as well as we thought you might, and we can't make an adjustment for you, then we'll always reassess for the next season. Like I said, the most previous season is what we use to determine how we think you'll perform. And also, as I said before, it's more art than science. It's a lot of, saying these two teams were competitive the last time we saw them play. We have to assume that these two at least are going to be competitive again. So as I said before, I'll be releasing those divisions and schedules later tonight after this meeting. So go ahead and check. But we're not going to make any changes before the first week. If you really think your team is classified incorrectly, you can let us know. We'll take note of it, And then after the first week, we'll let you know how we think things will be able to play out for you. What we won't make, we can't, and we won't make any promises about anything. If you need to change your roster, add players, remove players at any point, just go ahead and email me. We just want to make sure that any new players have signed on to the team before they play their first game. They need to sign the roster, and then we have an additional waiver that does need to be signed by everybody who plays. We'll have that waiver and the roster for you at the fields for your games. So you don't need to print out a new one. You don't need to bring it with you. We'll have it for you to sign. And this has come up a little more recently in the past, just because I'd like to think that the leagues have gotten a little more competitive. Is every year at the end of the season we have playoffs, and the top 4 teams in each division will make the playoffs. Oftentimes, teams will wonder, how they are, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth in the standings, based on all these other teams. So these are our tiebreakers that we use. The first is winning percentage. If you have a better record than another team, you're going to be placed above them in the rankings. Next, for 2 teams that have the same record, is we look at the head-to-head differential. This means that if 2 teams have played against each other, whatever the record is between those 2 teams, the winning team will get the higher place in the standings. If they've played twice and they have a split record against each other, then whatever the point differential is between those 2 will be the determining factor. Oftentimes, we'll have 3 teams that have the same record between them, and they'll all have split games with each other. We use the head-to-group differential, which is we look at the runs scored for and against for those 3 teams when they play against each other, and then we use that run differential to determine standings. If it won't go down, if it's not there, we use total run differential throughout the course of the season, total runs against throughout the course of the season. Whichever team had the fewest number of forfeits will take priority because they did win more games. And last, I haven't seen it yet. Might happen at some point. We go down to a coin toss. I'm excited for this at the same time, but I'm also not excited for this because it's not as interesting. All right. And so now moving on to what everybody really cares about most is the playoffs. Every week, league standings are updated. The umpires turn in the scorecards. My staff report the scores. Team sideline updates automatically. Top 4 teams from each division make the playoffs at the end of the season. And then at the end of the last week of every season is the playoffs. All the games are played in one night. So you may play 2 games in a night for the playoffs. Teams first and fourth place will play each other at 7:40. Teams finishing second and third will play first at 6:30. The winners of those 2 games will play against each other in the championship. The first 2 playoff games are 60 minutes or 7 innings, and then the championship game is 70 minutes or 7 innings, whichever comes first. And only the champion from each division will receive prizes. I didn't mention it before, but players need to have played in at least 3 games to be eligible for playoffs. This is why we track attendance on the scorecards for each game. We want to know that the roster you're submitting for your classification in the standings is the roster you're going to use throughout the course of the season. So we're not favorable to teams using ringers. We're not favorable to teams, grabbing players off of other teams to help win a game just so they can, make playoffs or get a better position in the standings. That there will be no benefit in the playoffs for you to do that, because if someone's only played for you once or twice, they're not going to play for you in the playoffs. We don't think 3 is unreasonable. It's pretty accommodating to people that have injuries, schedule flux, families, anything else that's going on. But we do want to make sure that your team is the team that the team that represents you in the playoffs is the team that you've been playing with throughout the course of the season. And this is why I've said that we have you fill out a scorecard with your players' names on it at the beginning of the game. This is why if a player is late, you need to add them. You need to ask the blue for the scorecard back so you can add them, Because if someone's not on that scorecard and they don't have 3 games, you can't email me the day before the playoffs and say, I guarantee you they were at that game. I don't care. I'm not going to listen. If they're not on that scorecard, they don't play. Okay. At this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I did notice some questions in the chat, so I'll be addressing those right now. As well, if you have any other questions, please feel free to put it in the chat as I'm going along. Question about the SMAF rules. Like I said before, we don't post them. If you would like a link to the SMAF rules, email me and I can send you that link. Looks like there was a question about the waivers and rosters. Like I said before, we have everyone on the team needs to sign a roster and additional other health waivers, which we will provide for you at the game. So just have your players show up and we'll bring you all the paperwork that needs to be signed. Yes, for players to qualify for the playoffs, you need to have played in at least 3 games to qualify. Good question about obstructing the line from base to base. We've considered making an actual rule about this in the past. The upper leagues, the players are aware of the baselines. However, in the lower leagues, there's a lot more players who don't have as much experience. So there's no hard and fast rule against doing it. I recommend if you see it, if you're running a base and somebody's standing in your way, be nice, yell at them, tell them to move, tell them to get out of your way. Try and avoid them as much as possible. The umpire will see what you're doing if you try to avoid them and make a call based on you trying to avoid them. If you swerve around the baseline to get to a base to avoid contact, the umpire will see that and will rule favorably for you. And it will be a lot safer than both of you going to the hospital because you just decided you needed to go through them. So I'm sorry, there is no hard and fast penalty, and that's just because we do have a lot of new players who may not be aware of the rules and may not be cognizant of the baselines. And we want to be as courteous as possible to everyone from, brand new players to skilled players. In case I haven't mentioned it before, if you would like to change your team name, if we post your team name incorrectly, please email me and I'm happy to make that change for you. And at this point, if all of your questions have been answered, if you feel good, feel free to log out. If you have other questions, please feel free to hang out a little bit longer and keep asking questions. At this point, I'm going to end the recording.